Such a harsh word. It's the most sophisticated word I can use. In America, having mistresses is very common. 5, 10, 20, no problem. But having more than one wife does not go down their throat. Why? Do you know when a woman is a mistress, she does not get her rights. She lives a life of disgrace. When a woman, she is a second wife, she has her honor, she has her dignity, she gets her rights. And there are various other reasons as well why Islam permits a Muslim man to have more than one wife. For example, if a woman gets handicapped and she's unable to marry another woman and give both of them equal rights and take care of both of them. Similarly, for example, if a woman is sterile for several years and if she is unable to have children, and if the husband wants to have children, the only option in this situation would be, and they have tried for several years, so the option for the husband is to divorce the first wife and to marry a second woman, or to keep the first wife and to marry another woman and treat both of them with justice and give them their rights. For example, if a woman meets with an accident and she is unable to fulfill or to take care of the children, so the husband has two options: either to keep this first wife or to marry another woman who can help and support the family, and to give both the wives their rights and to deal with justice. So due to various reasons, Islam permits a Muslim man to have more than one wife. The sixth most common question or misconception that is there in the minds of the non-Muslims is that if Islam allows a Muslim man to have more than one wife, why does Islam prohibit a Muslim woman from having more than one husband? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is referred to as polyandry. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran in Surah An-Nisa chapter number 4 verse number 24, verse number 22 to 24, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِن النِّسَاءِ, that do not marry a woman who's already married. So as far as polyandry is concerned, a woman having more than one husband, it is haram, it is prohibited in Islam. Let us analyze the logical reasons why Islam prohibits a Muslim woman from having more than one husband. If a man has more than one wife, you can easily identify the mother as well as the father. But if a woman has more than one husband, you will be able to identify the mother, but it would be very difficult to identify the father. And if you happen to admit the child in school, you may have to give two names. I'm aware that there is DNA and genetic testing. It is not very accurate, but even if I agree with you for sake of argument that it is accurate, this is not the only reason. There are several other reasons as well. The second reason, man is more polygamous in nature as compared to a woman. The third, there are various behavioral changes that take place in a woman. For example, the menstrual cycle, the postnatal bleeding. Because of this, she will not be able to do the role of multiple wives, whereas the husband can do the role of multiple husbands. Also another reason, that if a woman has more than one husband, there are high chances of STDs and sexual diseases being transmitted, and it will be retransmitted back to the man. Whereas if a man has more than one wife, there are very less chances of these diseases being transmitted. So even logically, it is problematic for a woman to have more than one husband, and I have mentioned the reasons to you. The seventh most common question or misconception that is there in the minds of non-Muslims is that why does Islam subjugate the woman by keeping her behind the veil? Before we discuss regarding hijab for the woman, let us look at the status of women in the past civilizations. If we look at the history of the Babylonian civilization, women, they were looked down upon. And if a man committed murder, instead of him being punished, his wife was put to death. If we look at the history of the Greek civilization, they believed in an evil woman by the name of Pandora, who was the cause of all evil. If we look at the history of the Roman civilization, women were looked down upon. Prostitution and nudity, it was common. If we look at the history of the Egyptian civilization, women were considered as a sign of the devil. If we look at the history of the Arab civilization, before the glorious Quran was revealed, when a female child was born, they used to bury her alive. Alhamdulillah, Thumma alhamdulillah, after the revelation of the glorious Quran, this evil practice has been stopped in the Arab lands. Many people talk about hijab for the woman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the glorious Quran first talks about hijab for the man. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran in Surah An-Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 30. Say to the believing man that he should lower his gaze and guard his modesty. Whenever any man looks at any woman, if any brazen thought, if any unashamed thought comes to his mind, he should lower his gaze. So first Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about hijab for the man. And then in the next verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 31. قل للمؤمنات يغضضن من أبصارهن ويحفظن فروجهن ولا يبدين زينتهن إلا ما ظهر منها. Say to the believing woman that she should lower her gaze and guard her modesty, and display not her beauty except what is ordinary thereof. And tell her to draw her veil over bosoms, and display not her beauty except in front of their husbands, their fathers, their sons. And there is a big list of mehrams, of close relatives who you cannot marry. There are basically 6 criteria for hijab that are mentioned in the glorious Quran and in the authentic hadith. The first is the extent for the man and for the woman. For the man, it is from the navel to the knee. For the woman, it is the complete body should be covered. The only parts that can be seen are the face and the hands up to the wrist. Certain scholars say that even this should be covered. The remaining 5 criteria are same for the man and for the woman. The second, the clothes they wear, it should be loose. It should not be tight-fitting. The third, it should not be translucent or transparent. The fourth, it should not be so glamorous that attracts the opposite gender. The fifth, it should not be that of the opposite gender. And the sixth, it should not resemble that of the unbelievers. These are basically 6 criteria for hijab. But this does not consist of the complete hijab. You have hijab of the eyes, hijab the way you walk, hijab the way you talk, hijab the way you behave. This consists of the complete hijab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter number 33. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن. O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the believing women that when they go abroad to put on the cloak, so that they shall be recognized and it will prevent them from being molested. The Western civilization claiming to uplift the woman, they have actually degraded her to a status of concubines, mistresses, society butterflies, which are mere tools in the hands of pleasure seekers and sex marketers, which are hidden behind the colorful screen of art and culture. The woman's liberalization claiming to uplift the woman, they have actually degraded the woman. And USA, claiming to be one of the most advanced countries in the world, it has the highest rate of rape, according to the US Department of Justice. No less than 1997 cases of rapes took place every day. And this was previously, and later on in the year 2014, this increased to 2,713 cases of rape. Every 37 seconds, one woman is raped in USA. This is the case in USA. USA, they claim they are one of the most advanced countries in the world. I am asking the question that if you implement the Islamic Sharia, that every woman, her complete body should be covered, the only parts that can be seen are the face and the hands up to the wrist. And the man, he should lower his gaze. And after that, if any man rapes any woman, capital punishment, death penalty. I am asking the question that will the rate of rape in USA, will it increase? Will it remain the same, or will it decrease? But naturally it will decrease. You implement the Sharia and you get results. So the moment you implement the Islamic Sharia, you will get results. The Islamic Sharia, it is a practical law. And many non-Muslims, they say that, you know, death penalty, such a barbaric law. And if you happen to ask non-Muslims this question, that God forbid if someone rapes your mother, if someone rapes your sister, and if the rapist is brought in front of you, what punishment will you give him? Believe me, 100% will say that we'll put him to death. Some go to the extent of saying we will torture him to death. If someone rapes your mother, if someone rapes your sister, you want to put him to death, you want to torture him to death. If someone rapes someone else's mother, someone else's sister, you say death penalty is such a barbaric law. Why these double standards? So the Islamic Sharia, it is a practical law. And hijab, it does not subjugate the woman, but rather it uplifts the woman. The eighth most common question or misconception, and this will be the last one which we will be discussing today, is that if Islam is against idol worship, why do you Muslims worship and bow down to the Kaaba in your prayer? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter number 2, verse number 144, فَوَلِّ وَجْهَكَ شَطْرَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ, then turn thy face towards the sacred mosque. We Muslims, we face the Kaaba. And Kaaba, it is our Qibla, that is the direction. And why do we face the Kaaba? For example, if the Muslims want to offer Salah, some might say, let's face towards the north. Some might say, let's face towards the south. Some might say, let's face towards the east. Some might say, let's face towards the west. So for the sake of unity, we face one direction. And Kaaba, it is only our Qibla, that is the direction. And Muslims were the first who drew the world map. Al-Idrusi in 1154, he drew the world map. And the North Pole was down, and the South Pole was on top, and the Kaaba was in the center. Later on, the Western cartographers came and they turned the map upside down. North Pole top, South Pole down. Yet, alhamdulillah, the Kaaba is in the center. And when we Muslims circumambulate around the Kaaba, we circumambulate around the Kaaba 7 rounds, indicating every circle has got one center, signifying that we only worship one God alone. And the hadith of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he states, and this hadith is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, Umar radiallahu anhu, he points at the black stone and he says, إني أعلم أنك حجر لا تنفع ولا تضر لولا أني رأيت الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبلك ما قبلتك. That Umar radiallahu anhu, he points at the black stone and he says, I know that you are a black stone and can neither benefit me nor harm me. Had I not seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam kiss or touched you, I would have not done so. And at the time of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, there were Sahaba who stood on the Kaaba and gave the adhan. which idol worshipper will ever stand on the idol he worships. So this is sufficient to prove that we Muslims, we do not worship the Kaaba. Kaaba is only our Qibla, that's the direction. These were 8 from among the 20 most common questions asked by non-Muslims regarding Islam. And for further details, you can go on the website www.zakirnaik.net and you can refer to the remaining questions from among the 20 most common questions. I would like to end my talk with a quotation from the glorious Quran from Surah Al Imran, chapter number 3, verse number 19. Inna deena indallahi al-Islam. The only religion acceptable in the sight of Allah, it is Islam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.